Right. So I'm not above sharing stories from personal experience. So when it comes to social care and people being left stuck in the system waiting for care packages to be put together, well, I can relate as my own mother is currently stuck in this very situation. A new study by Shared Data in conjunction with BBC Wales has discovered that 1,300 people actually died last year whilst waiting for a care package to be put into place. That it is now a postcode lottery as to whether a care package gets put together for an individual. Now, some will need additional care in their own homes. Some will be waiting to be discharged into care homes. Those going home may need carers several times a day to attend to their needs. Until a care package is put together, they cannot be discharged or should not be discharged. And we end up with this situation regarding beds in hospitals being blocked as a result of this. Now, the assessment side of things to decide these packages, made between medical professionals and adult social care, might get done pretty quickly. But the wait is then on to find a care company, privatised, willing to take on the contract for work and that can actually meet the needs of the patient, has the staff needed, staff that may have had the required training. That is a substantial problem. Companies will take on said contracts but then decide, oh no, we can't do it, and hand the contract back to the council. Well, by that time, the patient could be back in their own home, stuck there, and end up back in hospital taking up a bed needlessly again if the care in the community was there and care companies were more honest in their ability to take on the necessary duties or have the staff able to carry them out. Over the last 2 years, 13,000 contracts of this type have been handed back to local authorities, largely because of staffing shortages rather than lack of training. Needs to be pointed out. But of course, then we have to look at why there are staff shortages. And of course, Brexit saw an exodus of overseas workers driven away by that and the hostile environment that came with it, fostered by those in power towards migrant workers. Care is one of those sectors that is suffering from horrible shortages as a result. But we have no shortage of elderly or infirm or long-term sick and disabled people in need of care packages, in need of care either in their home or in care homes. We, as such a wealthy and powerful country, should be able to deal with. But sadly, we keep electing clowns into power with the same hardline right-wing politics, no matter what colour rosette they wear, and nothing ends up ever getting fixed. So let me tell you a little bit about the situations affecting myself and my family here, the story of my family, my dear old mum, and social care, because what better example, frankly, of what people are going through that I can tell you about than what is literally going on behind the scenes here at Kerno Damo HQ, if you like. Now, regular viewers will know I've had to take the odd time out here and there from making content. I always aim to get something out daily, as people will know. But now and again, over recent months, hasn't always been possible because of this situation with my mother. Now, about 18 months ago, she had a fall. She's 71, for context, tripped over a drain cover, we thought, banged her knee up. She wasn't badly hurt, luckily, but it put her off her feet for a little while. You figure, well, she's had a fall. She isn't badly hurt. She'll be all right in a week or two. This is a lady who walked at that time with her dog, little Jack Russell Chihuahua Cross, called Lewis, from our hometown of Helston to Porthleven twice a week. National Trust walk of some 3 miles. She'd get the bus back. So, fitting well for her age, absolutely. Anyway, she didn't get better. In fact, she kept declining, lost muscle mass, lost weight, started to find walking even harder, movement harder. She wasn't seriously hurt, as I said. So what the dickens was going on, we didn't know. She went to hospital, ended up in the Royal Cornwall Hospital, Cornwall's only main hospital. She got assessed for frailty at that point, getting on in years, still no real explanation as to why a simple fall seemed to have triggered this. Now, my sister happens to work for the local community hospital. She's a bit more switched on to the goings-on, and certainly those she works with in adult social care, she's not in that business, incidentally, but others she knows based there at the community hospital are. And they told her, and fed through to me as a result, don't let her leave Trelisk, don't let her leave the Royal Cornwall Hospital without a care package being in place. So we said, right, okay, as soon as they move discharging her, we'll check for the care package. We'll make sure we ask. Well, I got a phone call one morning, just after about 8 in the morning, getting the kids ready for school as it was. We're discharging your mother, they said. They all liaised with me as I'm the eldest child. So I said, great, when? Oh, she's already on her way. She left at 7:30. So they discharged her without a care plan before we could even get one in place, not telling us until they'd already discharged her. Local adult social care were raging, as were we. My brother, who happens to live with my mother, himself with health problems, he's epileptic, was expected to meet mum's care needs purely on the basis that he lived there. There was someone else there, so they could do it all. So he's all of a sudden a trained health professional then, and we still don't know what exactly was wrong with mum at the time. Well, as far as a care plan went at the time, he was it. Now, we were lucky, actually, I have to emphasise that. If not for having a sister with connections, with people in the know, we might have not have got some sort of mitigating care in. And you can imagine for most people in such a situation, they won't have that, if only for a few weeks of mitigating care, such as it was. Meanwhile, Mum kept declining. Eventually, social services chased up a GP appointment to get Mum an assessment with a view to getting an urgent request for care, for a care plan put in place. They were convinced an MRI that Mum had had whilst in the Royal Cornwall Hospital had missed something, as by this point, she all of a sudden couldn't lift her left foot up anymore, something they call dropped foot. And that's usually a sign of a neurological issue, like a stroke. Well, the local medical centre-based paramedic turned up to do the assessment. He was a bit grumpy on the day. He'd been called in to cover sickness. It's the NHS for you, so he wasn't particularly a happy bunny when he arrived. But he did the assessment, and she did indeed get qualified to get taken into hospital. Even that, however, got made an absolute pig's ear of, as the ambulance crew came out the next day to take her in, hadn't had it confirmed to them exactly where she was going to go. Now, we had been told it was Redruth Community Hospital. They had the bed ready. But if it didn't get confirmed for the ambulance crew from those who had arranged this, they couldn't actually take her. She nearly lost the bed by the time confirmation came through. Another crisis narrowly averted that shouldn't have ever happened. She did indeed head into Redruth Community Hospital. That was on the 31st of May this year, and she's still there. 31st of July today, she just hit her 2-month anniversary. Her wait is nothing unusual, apparently, though. People in a third of the UK apparently have average waiting times of more than a month before discharge. Mum's wait has been unnecessarily long, though. She was due to go in for a specialist scan at the Royal Cornwall Hospital again. They don't do the scan that was required very often, so when she got there and turned up on a stretcher instead of a wheelchair, they refused to do it. She got sent back to Redruth Community Hospital to have to wait a further 2 weeks for another one of these scans to be booked. A complaint got put in. It's one of those never events that should never happen. Redruth Community Hospital actually made the complaint. It wasn't from us. They beat us to it. And I sincerely hope that that goes forward and these things don't happen again. But it was only after this setback that the hospital felt it was appropriate to then tell us, the family, of their diagnosis for Mum, that finally they got to the bottom of it, and that she'd actually got motor neuron disease. It would seem that rather than her original fall sparking off everything that happened, it might have been the first sign of the disease beginning to affect her. Lots of people have heard of this condition. It is absolutely evil. And so it's infamous rather than well known. It's what Stephen Hawking had. But whereas he lived for years with it, very much the exception he was and not the rule. Mum's been given some 18 months. There's no recovering from it. There's no curing it. It is actually really rare. Only around 5,000 people at any one time have it in the UK out of a population of some 64 million people. So it's horribly unlucky that this is what Mum has. Well, sending her home with a diagnosis like that, clearly not an option. We knew that she would continue to decline, has done so. She can no longer walk at all now, for example. She was still just about capable of mobilising using a frame when she went into Redruth Hospital. So that's an example of the speed things are progressing. She had to have this specific scan to confirm the diagnosis, though. And once that was finally done, she was then in a position for nursing care to be found. Mum accepted the need to go into care. Not happily. Who does? Who wants to go into a home? Who wants to put their parent into one? None of us did. But we also knew that this was beyond our abilities to deal with ourselves. You imagine nursing rather than residential care would be obvious that that's what she needs for a progressive condition like this, though, right? So did the hospital. However, adult social care, based in the same building, no less, said no. A nursing place was found. We had visited it. It was lovely. They'd accepted Mum. It was all go. And then adult social care refused the funding. She's qualified for a funding package because Mum had, but not this one, not nursing care, because Mum had not declined sufficiently enough. You see, it doesn't matter that she can no longer walk, amongst other issues I won't discuss here. Sharing the story is one thing. All the details get a little bit personal. But she isn't in need enough for a nursing place at this specific moment in time. She needs residential care, a lower level of care right at this moment in time, despite everyone knowing that with this being a progressive illness, she will need nursing care, probably in the not too distant future. So she lost a place. And after 2 months in hospital, you kind of want to change of scenery. I'd be going mad myself, climbing the walls. I'm sure many of you watching would think likewise. The placement was for nursing care, not residential. And although the place that she was booked in to go into do both, they separate their residents accordingly. So didn't have a residential place available. So it all fell through. Another placement came up last week, and that also fell through due to a burst water pipe. You do feel like you're being pissed on from a great height by this point. Another place came up last Friday. They were supposed to go in and assess Mum over the weekend to see if they could accommodate her needs. They can take her in as a residential patient and then move her to nursing there. Much better for Mum, so no mucking about. But they haven't turned up yet, so we're still waiting for that to happen. It's exhausting, I'll tell you. This is just one example, though, of what thousands of families around the country are going through, here and now. So is it any wonder some are actually dying before they even get out of hospital? Dying in a bed they shouldn't be taking up. At least Mum got assessed fairly quickly. One council identified in the shared data investigation has seen people wait more than 3 months just to get assessed. And we opted to go with a care home for Mum based on her prognosis. But some people who cannot get home care are left with no choice but to go into a home instead. For so many years, there has been rampant underinvestment in social care. Stories like mine, and there are many worse stories out there, are not unusual, unfortunately. We just hope Mum gets to end her days in a more comfortable surrounding than the bed she's pretty much trapped in right now. The Tories should be utterly ashamed of themselves, but they screw up everything. So why not this too? It no longer matters what condition you might have. It's what your health is like as a snapshot in time on the day that dictates the level of care you get. And then you have to fight to get that changed as health deteriorates. It is a senseless way of deciding how to administer social care that only ever fails people in the long term. When long term is something those affected, such as my mother, don't have. Thanks for watching. I hope you found the video useful. Please like, share and subscribe if you did. New content out daily. Meanwhile, here's another you might find useful on the privatisation more generally happening in the NHS under the guise of so-called integrated care. The issue is being championed, of course, by an MP that Keir Starmer's expelled, because of course it is. He only gets rid of the good ones. And I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.